The silent departure, the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before. Patrol Commander Thyrek Velnine, as his sleek council vessel glided through the outer rim of what had once been human territory. His compound eyes, designed to detect the slightest movement across multiple spectrums of light, scanned the darkness with practiced efficiency. For 15 years, this patrol route had been routine, monitoring the humans who had been confined to their designated systems after their rejection from the Galactic Council. Thyrax Katona's fingers tapped against a control panel in a rhythmic pattern that betrayed his growing unease. Something felt different today, though he couldn't identify what had triggered his instincts. The insectoid commander had survived 3 decades of military service by trusting these feelings, and right now, every fiber of his being screamed that something was terribly wrong. The first sign of trouble appeared on his long-range sensors as a cluster of objects that should have been bustling with activity. New Terra Colony, home to nearly 2 million humans, registered as completely dark on his detection grid. No energy signatures, no communication signals, no ship traffic. The Rack's mandibles clicked together nervously as he adjusted his course toward the colony. As his ship approached the massive orbital station that served as New Terra's primary hub, the worst fears began to materialize. The station was intact, showing no signs of damage or battle, but it was utterly lifeless. Docking bays that should have been filled with cargo vessels and passenger shuttles sat empty. Viewing ports that should have glowed with the warm light of human habitation stared back at him like dead eyes. Thyrak activated his emergency communication array and sent out a broad-spectrum hail across all known human frequencies. His message echoed through the void, bouncing off the empty structures and returning to him without any response. The silence was deafening, made more unsettling by the perfect condition of everything he could see. The commander ordered his ship's AI to conduct a comprehensive scan of the colony. The results that appeared on his screen defied logic. Life support systems were still operational, indicating the colony had been abandoned recently. Food storage areas showed no signs of emergency. Evacuation procedures. Personal belongings remained in residential quarters, as if the inhabitants had simply vanished mid-activity. But what truly sent chills down Thyrak's segmented spine was the discovery of holographic projectors hidden throughout the colony. These devices, far more advanced than anything in the Council's databases, had been broadcasting false signs of life. Heat signatures, movement patterns, even simulated communication chatter had been artificially generated to make the colony appear fully operational to distant sensors. Thyrak's hands trembled as he composed an urgent message to Council Command. However, before he could transmit his findings, his sensors detected something that made his blood run cold. 5 more human colonies within scanning range showed identical readings. All appeared intact, all were completely abandoned, and all had been using sophisticated deception technology to mask their true state. The implications hit Thyrak like a physical blow. If these 6 colonies were empty, how many others had been evacuated without the Council's knowledge? How long had the humans been planning this exodus? And, most terrifying of all, where had nearly 50 million people disappeared too without leaving a trace? Back on the Council homeworld, High Chancellor Morax paced the length of his private chambers, his reptilian tail leaving gouges in the polished floor. The scaled leader of the Galactic Council had ruled for over a century, maintaining order through careful diplomacy and measured force. But the report from Commander Thyrak had shattered his confidence in ways he hadn't experienced since his youth. Morax activated the chamber's holographic display, bringing up a 3-dimensional Map of known space. Red markers indicated the locations of abandoned human colonies, and with each passing hour, more markers appeared as patrol commanders throughout the galaxy confirmed similar discoveries. The pattern was becoming clear, and it terrified him. The humans had not simply left their assigned territories. They had vanished from the galaxy entirely. No ship signatures, no energy trails, no communications intercepts. It was as if an entire species had simply decided to stop existing, taking their technology, their knowledge, and their potential with them. Emergency council sessions were called, as representatives from all 12 member species gathered to address the crisis. The Great Chamber, which had once echoed with confident pronouncements about containing human ambition, now buzzed with worried whispers and fearful speculation. Ambassador Cathril of the Silicon-based collective was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. His crystalline form pulsed with agitated patterns of light as he spoke through the chamber's translation matrix. The humans possessed faster-than-light travel technology before we encountered them. If they have continued to develop their capabilities in isolation, they may now possess means of transportation that render our senses useless. Council Prime Nexus, the energy being who had originally advocated for humanity's rejection, flickered with what could only be described as anxiety. Our intelligence reports indicated that human scientists were working on theoretical projects involving dimensional manipulation and space-time distortion. We dismissed these efforts as primitive attempts to replicate our own technology. Hi. Chancellor Morax raised his clawed hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet as the weight of their situation settled over the assembled representatives. For 15 years, they had believed that rejecting humanity would contain their potential threat to galactic stability. Instead, they had driven an entire species to develop capabilities that now made them undetectable and unreachable. The truth about humanity's exodus began to emerge through fragments of intercepted data and abandoned research facilities. Dr. Sarah Chen, a brilliant physicist who had been working on advanced propulsion systems, had apparently made a breakthrough shortly after the Council's rejection. Her research team had developed what they called the phase drive, a technology that allowed ships to slip between dimensions and traverse vast distances instantaneously. Captain Alina Rodriguez, former head of the Human Defense Fleet, had apparently coordinated the largest evacuation in galactic history. Over the course of 5 years, she had overseen the secret construction of massive transport vessels capable of carrying entire populations. These ships, built in hidden facilities throughout human space, had ferried millions of people to destinations unknown. The holographic deception had been the final masterstroke. While Council patrols detected what appeared to be thriving human colonies, the reality was that humanity had been systematically emptying their worlds. Automated systems maintained the illusion of inhabited settlements while the last humans slipped away into the vast unknown. Council intelligence analysts worked frantically to trace possible human destinations, but their efforts proved futile. The phase drive technology left no detectable signature, and humanity's new settlements could be anywhere in the universe. They might have traveled to distant galaxies, established colonies in parallel dimensions, or found ways to exist in spaces that the Council's science couldn't even comprehend. As reports continued to pour in from across Council territory, the scope of humanity's departure became increasingly clear. Asteroid mining stations that had employed human workers stood empty. Trading posts that had relied on human merchants reported massive drops in commerce. Even scientific research facilities that had benefited from human innovation found themselves struggling to maintain their previous levels of productivity. The economic impact was immediate and devastating. Human ingenuity had become integral to countless council operations without anyone realizing it. Their absence created gaps in supply chains, research projects, and technological development that couldn't be easily filled by other species. High Chancellor, Morax found himself facing the greatest crisis of his long reign. The Council had not merely lost track of a potentially dangerous species. They had allowed an entire civilization to slip away, taking with them innovations and capabilities that might have benefited the entire galaxy. Worse still, they had no way of knowing what humanity was planning or where they might emerge next. In the depths of space, far beyond the reach of Council sensors, massive human fleets continued their journey to freedom. Generation ships the size of small moons carried complete ecosystems and millions of colonists toward new homes among distant stars. Advanced scout vessels explored uncharted regions, identifying suitable worlds for humanity's expansion. The phase drive had given them more than escape. It had given them the entire universe as their new domain. While the Council debated and worried in their familiar territories, humanity was claiming whole sectors of space that no other species had ever seen. Dr. Sarah Chen, now elderly but still brilliant, stood on the observation deck of the flagship vessel New Dawn and watched as another human colony ship disappeared into phase space. Her invention had not only freed her species from the Council's limitations, but had opened infinite possibilities for human expansion and development. The Council's rejection, meant to contain humanity's potential, had instead unleashed it upon the cosmos itself. And as the last traces of human presence faded from Council space, one truth became increasingly clear: they would never again underestimate the determination of a species that refused to accept limitations on their dreams. The reckoning 3 years had passed since the discovery of humanity's mass exodus, and the Galactic Council chambers had never felt more tense. High Chancellor, Morax stood before the assembled representatives, his scaled features drawn with exhaustion and worry. The economic collapse that had followed humanity's departure had triggered social unrest across dozens of worlds. And now they faced an even more disturbing development. The first incident had occurred in the Rigel system, where the aquatic colonies had been struggling with a deadly plague that was wiping out their underwater cities. Council medical teams had declared the situation hopeless, estimating that the entire species would be extinct within months. Then, without warning, massive unmarked vessels had appeared in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld. These mysterious ships had deployed advanced medical equipment and treatment protocols that seemed almost magical in their effectiveness. The plague was neutralized within days, saving millions of lives. When Zephyrian leaders tried to communicate with their saviors, they received only a brief message: no species should face extinction alone. The ships had vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind only questions and profound gratitude. Similar incidents began occurring throughout Council space with increasing frequency. The Crystalline Collective's mining operations were failing due to equipment breakdowns that their technology couldn't repair. Ghost fleets appeared overnight, providing replacement machinery that was decades more advanced than anything in their databases. The repairs were completed with impossible precision, and the mysterious helpers disappeared before anyone could make contact. Commander Alex Petrov watched these operations from the bridge of his cloaked vessel, the Invisible Hand. His weathered face showed the strain of coordinating humanity's secret intervention campaigns across the galaxy. As the leader of the Human Relief Corps, he had overseen dozens of these missions, each one designed to help struggling species while maintaining absolute secrecy about their origins. Alex's communication officer, Lieutenant Maria Santos, turned from her station with a puzzled expression. "Commander, we're receiving multiple distress signals from Council space. It appears that several more species are facing critical situations that their governments can't handle." Alex nodded grimly. The Council's limitations were becoming more apparent with each passing month. Their rigid bureaucracy and technological stagnation meant that when crisis struck, they were often powerless to respond effectively. Meanwhile, humanity's rapid advancement in the 3 years since their departure had given them capabilities that seemed miraculous to the struggling Council worlds. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the fleet's chief scientist, approached Alex with a tablet containing their latest intelligence reports. "Commander, our analysis indicates that the Council's infrastructure is failing at an accelerating rate. Without human innovation and maintenance, their systems are breaking down faster than they can repair them." The irony was not lost on Alex. The Council had rejected humanity to prevent them from disrupting galactic stability, but their absence was causing exactly the kind of chaos the Council had feared. Species that had relied on human ingenuity were struggling to maintain their civilizations, while those that had never interacted with humans were discovering that Council promises of support were largely empty back in Council chambers. High Chancellor Morax faced increasingly desperate requests for aid from member species. The Andromedian Empire was experiencing food shortages that their agricultural technology couldn't address. The Silicon Collective's power grids were failing, threatening to shut down their entire civilization. The energy beings of the Nexus cluster were losing cohesion, their collective consciousness fragmenting without the stabilizing influence of external interactions. Council Prime Nexus flickered weakly as it addressed the assembly. "We must acknowledge the obvious truth. These rescue operations bear the signature of human technology and human ethics. Somehow, they have developed capabilities that surpass our own and are using them to aid species in crisis." Ambassador Kethral's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "But why do they help others while remaining hidden from us? What is their purpose in these interventions?" The answer came sooner than anyone expected. During an emergency session called to address the growing crisis, the Chamber's communication systems activated without authorization. The screens filled with the image of a human woman in her 50s, wearing the uniform of what appeared to be a highly advanced space fleet. Ambassador Wei Zhong had been chosen carefully for this moment. Her calm demeanor and diplomatic experience made her the ideal representative for humanity's first official contact with the Council since their departure. She stood in what was clearly the bridge of a vessel more advanced than anything in the Council's fleet, surrounded by technology that seemed to bend the very laws of physics. "High Chancellor Morax," Ambassador Wei began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. "I am Ambassador Wei Zhong, speaking on behalf of the Human Confederation. We have been monitoring the situation in Council space and felt it was time for direct communication." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs as representatives realized they were finally face to face with the species that had eluded them for years. Morax struggled to maintain his composure as he responded. "Ambassador Zhong, the Council has been concerned about humanity's whereabouts. We have much to discuss regarding your people's departure and current activities." Wei smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "High Chancellor, we are aware of the Council's concerns. We are also aware of your recent attempts to locate our settlements and colonies. Such efforts are unnecessary and unwelcome." Behind Wei, The bridge of her vessel revealed glimpses of technology that made the council representatives gasp. Holographic displays showed star maps spanning multiple galaxies, while crew members of various species worked alongside humans in perfect coordination. It was clear that humanity had not only survived their exile, but had thrived beyond the council's wildest imagination. Morax leaned forward, his voice taking on a pleading tone that would have been unthinkable 3 years earlier. "Ambassador, perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. The Council is prepared to reconsider its previous decision regarding human membership. Your people have clearly demonstrated capabilities that would benefit our alliance." Wei's expression hardened. "High Chancellor, you misunderstand our position. Humanity has no interest in joining the Galactic Council. Your organization represents limitations we have chosen to transcend." The ambassador gestured to something off-screen, and the display split to show images of thriving human colonies across multiple star systems, cities that floated in clouds, of gas giants, underwater metropolises that surpassed anything the Zephyrians had built, and space habitats that housed millions of people in perfect harmony with their environment. "We have established new homes among the stars," Wei continued. "We have formed alliances with species you never bothered to contact, and we have solved challenges you declared impossible. Most importantly, we have done all of this without the Council's permission or participation." Council Prime Nexus flickered. Desperately, "Ambassador, surely we can find common ground. The galaxy faces challenges that require cooperation between all sentient species." Wei's smile returned, but this time it carried a hint of sadness. "Prime Nexus, you are correct that the galaxy faces great challenges. However, the Council has repeatedly demonstrated that it is part of the problem, not part of the solution." The screens changed to show footage of the human relief operations that had been occurring throughout Council space. Ships appearing to help struggling colonies, advanced medical treatments being deployed to save dying populations, and technological solutions being provided to species the Council had written off as hopeless for 3 years. Wei explained, "Humanity has been quietly helping those whom the Council had abandoned. We have saved entire species from extinction, solved resource crises that your bureaucracy couldn't address, and provided aid without expecting anything in return." "High Chancellor." Morax felt the foundations of his authority crumbling beneath him. "Ambassador, if humanity has such capabilities, surely you can see the benefit of working together rather than operating in isolation." Wei shook her head slowly. "High Chancellor, you still don't understand. We are not operating in isolation. We have formed new alliances with species that share our values of cooperation, innovation, and mutual aid. The difference is that these alliances are based on respect rather than control." Asterisk. Commander Alex Petrov stood once again on the bridge of his vessel, but now he wore the uniform of the Confederation Relief Corps. The missions continued, but now they operated openly, providing aid and offering alliance to any species that sought a better path forward in the end. The Council's attempt to contain humanity had accomplished exactly the opposite of their intentions. Instead of preventing disruption to galactic order, they had forced humanity to create an entirely new order based on principles of cooperation, innovation, and unlimited potential. The galaxy belonged to those who dared to dream of something better, and humanity had taught countless species that such dreams were not only possible but inevitable. The Council could watch from their shrinking territory as the future unfolded around them, knowing that they had chosen isolation over evolution, control over cooperation, and fear over hope. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, not with violence or conquest, but with the simple reality that they had become irrelevant to a universe that had learned to reach for the stars. Asterisk.